All right, Syllia, thanks for being on the show. So let's start off with a little bit. You studied radio and have done radio. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Explain a little bit about what goes into studying to be a voiceover radio artist.
So that wasn't my main focus in college. It was more for like TV and film, but obviously they had a radio station there, and that kind of got my attention more. But so at Salisbury University in Maryland, I was working for the radio station there at the university. And then there's also a local radio station that I started to intern. And then I actually got hired and started working there as well. There's a lot in radio. I think majority of people have at least listened to radio one time in their life. So I either like it or you don't. It depends on the person. And radio has changed over the years too. But basically it's just like the conversation that you're having, even if you're pretending that there's somebody in the room, somebody like your best friend, even if you haven't talked to them in like 10 years, that whenever you see them, you always have something that you're going to say, like your mouth just doesn't stop talking. So that's basically the mindset that you have going into the studio. So the conversation is just like a normal conversation you have with anyone. And that's the idea of it. And it works. If you have that mentality, you picture somebody in the room, it actually does work. But the listener, whoever is listening, you'll know the range, the demographic within your area, and then depending on like the actual radio station itself, what market it's in, how big it expands. So you're usually talking to like that person that has to come home from work at 5:30, maybe 6. We'll have the kids, the dog, maybe grandma's at the house. So you'll know that person and you'll have like the daily conversation with them. But a lot of preparation goes into it as to what you're actually going to say, what they'll like to hear about, what they want to hear about. So if there's a community center having some big party, they might want to know, or if there's a food truck coming by and it's only coming by this weekend, so you have to be there. So that's a lot that goes into it. But
do you have to do your own research for that, or is there like a person there that is responsible for that?
So for me, at least, I did it myself. There's different websites that is given to us, and that there's like at least one radio website that has all the different information kind of laid out for it. So how people get their normal news, there's just like a radio news, everything that you can say. They give you like kind of topics you can say, how you can say it. Maybe you want to play a game with it or something like that. They give you all that, even sound bites too as well that you could use. So if there's something that an actual celebrity was saying in some other interview, you will have like a sound bite there too. So they'll give you the information. It's there. You obviously yourself can go into it more. But there's also just stuff locally you'll probably have to research yourself too. So for the main broad news, there's sites for it, but you yourself, I usually just did it myself. If I was like running out of time, then maybe I'll go on the site and be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But basically, yeah, that's for researching. Probably like one of the first things in the morning. So like my show was like 10 to 3. So the morning show, midday show. So yeah, that was like one of the first things I'll come in was like do research, like, okay, maybe at 1:00, this is some important news that I should talk about because maybe more people will be listening then, or it'll be switching. So they'll actually be focused more. And then like food stuff, make sure you have it at 2:00. Everyone loves food. Somebody's probably like leaving, going home, thankfully. So it depends on what the actual news is.
So that's the catch that it has always interested me in radio as well, is you've got this massive period of time to fill with content.
Yes.
And have you ever had that situation where you're like, I have nothing more to talk about. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say right now.
It is honestly so crazy to me because like I'm kind of like introverted, extrovert, I'm both. So it just kind of switches. But there are days where your just mind goes blank. So if any time that happens, usually you'll just go to whatever the station has. So station itself will probably have information for events going on, or sometimes they'll have like PSAs. So you can drop in that PSA, you yourself read it, or if they have their own news itself. So that's usually that's usually where that comes in handy, and I'm thankful for that at times. um, but I know a lot of people that are just like, I've know coworkers are like, I have like one left. Like, what is going on? Help me, please. And I'm like, yeah, I got you. This is the last bit. I just did it. But if you put in this hour instead of the next one, then you'll be fine. All right. And then it's all, yes, it's really about placement and kind of just like understanding the audience, the listeners. So it's easier with like local smaller markets because you're out there, you're living their lives, and they pass you by like every day. They don't even notice sometimes, but sometimes they do. But it's still good. So you're one of them. You are a local, so you're understanding. You actually yourself know what they want to hear. And they'll
Okay.
tell you what they want to hear too.
Oh, do they? They contact you and you're like, I don't want to hear that crap. Talk about
Yes, they
something else.
do. So I did different. I was working. There's a total of 5 stations that were in my office. So there's like the 2 rock stations. We had the oldies. We had the today's hits and the countries. So it depends. It also depends on the actual radio station itself. But yes, they'll tell you the music they want to hear. The actual information itself. They'll send you information, which is good. So it's always good when they actually send you stuff, because like that's what we appreciate. That's what we want to get sent to us, and that's what we want to talk about on air for you to go and do this, like help out your neighbor. So when they do that, that's very appreciative. But yeah, they'll tell you music that they want to hear. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. Sometimes it's just really funny. But I mean, it's nice to know that they're at least listening, even if they're upset with what we're playing. Like, they're still listening, so that's good. And they're probably gonna listen to the end of the song that they hate. But yeah, and like even me not being in radio right now, that still happens when I listen to radio here, and I'm just like, I know what they're doing, so it's good.
Yeah, and it's cool too, because if you think about it, with streaming, Spotify, and all that kind of stuff, the fact that people are actually still listening to radio is probably a
Yeah.
good thing. I would imagine people that work for the newspaper were like, yeah, I wish people would still read the newspaper. So that's great.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's like something that is dying, but it's still something that it's living on. And I think it still will. It also depends on the type of person that you are. So I know for me personally, like I would always listen to the radio. I always grew up listening to the radio within this area here. So when I actually had the chance to do it, like it didn't come across my mind. And when I had the chance, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I kind of dreamed of when I was younger, but I never thought it would happen, and it happened. But like I'm the type of person like will just listen to music in general. Like it'll kind of just like come to me. I won't go and look for it, if that makes sense. But everywhere I hear it, I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. I like this. This is like a nice beat, nice artist, nice sound going on. Like I appreciate that. I think there's like a lot of people in this world that are like that as well. And we kind of just like still, some of us still like that local feel. So there's like some shows I've listened to when I was younger, like my parents would listen to. And I'm just like, wow, like I'm glad you guys are still doing this show. Like it's so nice that you're still doing it. And now me being older, I can like understand more with what they were saying on air and relate to it more now than I did when I was younger. But I think it will be continuous.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you made up, because that just made me think about, there was a station in Seattle that I used to listen to in the mornings, and they had their regular morning hosts. And then at some point the station got bought out, or who knows, some national whatever took over. And so they had a national host doing the morning show that was broadcast all over the place, and it lost
Yeah.
that local flair that it had before.
The
And the
syndicated
hosts were really
shows.
good. Yeah. So that's too bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of syndicated shows out there. I feel like I know which one you're talking about. It's everywhere. But yes, they're sometimes they're good. So like I know we did have the morning show syndicated show on our station, and some people liked it, some people didn't. I personally didn't like it, but then I heard it everywhere else. And then of course, like because it's over there, you'll hear it way more, and it'll be like longer segments, and then obviously more local, but then actual news that actually happened like that day right then. So where we had is different because obviously there's a time difference and everything doesn't happen at the same time that we can easily just put it on air like the next second. So that kind of stalled for us, at least over here. And I mean, it's not bad. It's really, it is funny at times. It's just if it was longer, if we could hear more of it, but obviously we can't do that just because it's not in the area.
What do you have any tips for people that have issues with, like, say, filler words and that kind of stuff? Because I know this is one of the areas I struggle with in doing a podcast. Is I'll be like, or that kind of stuff. Any advice for anyone on that, specifically me?
Well, it's obviously okay because I still have that problem. There we go.
All right.
It's now we're thinking about it, so now my mind is just on it.
Every time you say now.
Exactly. The thing is, I think it's just more personally, I think it's more natural because that's what the audience, at least for on a radio, kind of like to hear is like, oh, they're human too. They're not just like a robot or whatever. But filler words, I believe that I have no answer for that one, actually. Right. They're just anything that you kind of think of. But I think it's just when you're overthinking it, that's basically what happens. But if you have something or whatever topic that you're passionate about, the words kind of just come out smoothly. So that's what's going on there.
So speak passionately about whatever it is you're talking about.
Yes. Know what you're going to say. Maybe write something down. And that actually does help a little bit, even if it's not just like the whole thing, just like the topics of what you'd say, kind of like this basically is going to be how it all started. And then it just kind of, you're just going and you're just talking. So it happens at times, but then sometimes it's just gone in 2 seconds and you're not realizing it until you're listening back. And it's like, wow, I actually just said words that made sense and didn't sound weird on air. And that's kind of how it works. But it does happen to everyone. Even like I know professionals, people have done it for years that sometimes still have using ums and likes, but it works.
It's the nature of the way we speak, I guess.
Yes, I think it's also like weird for us at times to hear our voice and then just to kind of be having that one-sided conversation for some cases. So this is not like one-sided. You still mainly you just talking and it's not just like, oh, out with friends and whatever I say doesn't really matter.
Okay, well, let's change subjects because I really want to kind of talk about like production assistant and stagehand type stuff. So you're currently working as a stagehand at the Fillmore, correct?
Yes.
So explain to the audience what a stagehand does, like why they're so valuable to the theater.
So short version, basically, without a stagehand, the show would not be happening. So stagehands are the ones they're helping to change the set, to create it, to build that huge video board, to put that giant statue on the stage. For anything that you see on the stage, the stagehand has touched it, has set it there, has placed it there, moved it around a bunch, forgot to attach a cord and they put it on 2 seconds before the show actually went on, and they're the ones that will tear it down again as well. So that whole design that you'll see is from a stagehand. You'll see them if you're the ones that stay, even when the show is ended and they kicked everyone out and you just want like a shirt from one of the artists, though they've left the stage, you're probably calling us to get a shirt. And we're like, that's not mine. Yeah. So all of that we've done. So a lot of help, obviously, with the touring company that is there with us, but there's a lot of audio equipment, video equipment, whatever else that they need, just decorations as well. So there's a lot of different sets out there. A lot of them are very complex and some of them are pretty simple, but those are all that we handle with, and it's very nice.
We actually just this last Friday night, we went and watched Back to the Future, the musical.
Oh, really?
And I was so impressed with the effects in that show, and the change, the way they would swap scenes
Mm-hmm.
and just the way they worked it. So that's the fact that we're talking about stagehands, because without the stagehands, that show would have not. I mean, yeah, the music was fine and all that kind of stuff, but really, personally, I was like, oh man, look at the way they're doing these transitions and the way they're moving the car around. And so, yeah, the crew behind the scenes have to really be coordinated and paying attention to make all that happen.
Yes, it all counts. Sometimes I go really fast. I did actually do theater. So I was actually one of the crew members back there as well. So kind of a
Mm-hmm.
future now. But yes, all of that is very important. Quick work. This one, it really depends on the actual stage or the artist as to how they want it. So majority of work is before or after. So sometimes they'll have set changes, not as much. But if you do, they'll still be them just like quickly doing it. All of them are important.
How did you find that? Did you just go to the theater and were like, hey, you looking for somebody, or did you know somebody there?
For the Fillmore. Actually, I was on Instagram and I saw that because I follow them on Instagram, so they posted that they're having an open house, job fair. So I actually was like, oh, it's very interesting. So I went there and then I also applied online, just to make sure everything was set. But then, went in, had an interview, which was really great. So, and that was actually the first time I stepped foot in that building. And it's funny because it's like 20 minutes from me. So it's really not that far. And I drive past it almost all the time. But that was the first time I actually stepped foot in that building. So that was very interesting.
And what's the interview process like for a stagehand? Like, what are they looking for when they're hiring somebody? Is it kind of attitude? Is it ability to hammer with a nail? What exactly are they looking for?
I think it's mainly like you have experience within production. You kind of know what the scene will be like. Um, I don't think you really have to know how to do all these other tech things or even have much of an experience with the kind of equipment because they can also teach you that at the same time. They would prefer, obviously, somebody with the experiences, but it's a learn as you go type of thing. So there's a lot of different names that will be thrown out just for different equipment, materials used on set. And you kind of just got like, okay, that's what you're talking about. Cool. We're just gonna call it the blue thing for now, and I'll remember it later.
Yeah.
But as long as you kind of get it done, and you're not just like messing around, and like there's privacy obviously for the different artists that come on stage too. But we do get to see them at times, so that's really cool. And seeing the set like afterwards, seeing it the stage filled with the performers and then the actual crowd, seeing that whole thing, like that is beautiful. Like
Mm.
seeing it from like just a simple stage and then all these things on the stage kind of look weird. Like, I don't know how this artist is going to make this work. And then actually seeing the whole thing, I'm like, wow, that is a smart decision. Like that is the process for everything at the end. So definitely a reward, I think. But yeah, you're learning as you're going, but you still would usually have the experience. But we haven't had to actually hammer things as much. I think only like once or twice. Um, Mainly the movement and putting up. I think not like the worst thing. But the video wall, just because it's usually so high up, and then the videos can be kind of heavy depending on the actual video itself. And some people want it like 10 feet tall, like the tallest. But it's actually, if that's the only thing that you're doing for the day, that's a good day. That's it.
And like you said, you get to see the show, right?
Yes, we do. So it's actually really cool seeing the audiences there just jamming out. Everyone is just like in the zone, just like, oh my gosh, I love you,
Yeah.
my favorite artist. And some of them crowd surfing too, which is like, I don't know if they're doing it or it just happens.
Have you ever had anyone come out and been like, or you might not have to deal with it, maybe somebody else with the theater does, but like come out and they're just like, this is awful. Yeah, I can't perform like this.
No, not really. We did have like an auto tune like mishap. I mean, that wasn't really us. I mean, that wasn't really anybody. It was the mic itself that they would keep dropping. So of course, it was giving in and out. So they actually did leave like on stage for a couple of minutes. And we're like, what's going on? Because he was supposed to end soon, obviously, and they went over. So we're just like, okay, we're just patiently waiting for the show to end, and we're confused because now there's no music, but that wasn't the end of the show. So we're like, okay. But usually, so far everyone has been good. Not that much. Yeah, not that much of any bad reviews from the artist playing that I've heard of. So that's good.
Well, and that work is very similar to working, I think, as a production assistant on a film set. So if anybody's been on like a major film set with like a big production, there are PAs everywhere doing all kinds of different stuff. So what is a production assistant? Tell me a little bit about that.
So basically, probably the person with the headset running around, maybe have a clipboard, but basically assisting any way you can. It can be getting food for the different talents there, maybe rearranging the set if there's stuff in the background that's not needed, fixing a plant that is awkwardly inside the shot, making sure any cables aren't being shown as well. Anything that the director, that the cameraman, the talent, and probably anyone else back there will need. We're here for that. So even if you need someone like to just like re-look at the shot, we're there for that too. So that one, so it is pretty similar. I definitely like doing that, just seeing how the whole product, finished start to finish, how it fully flows, and just putting together all the different sets. So I've done some recently, mainly within the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So, of course, they're not that far from each other, but I've done different ones, kind of corporate ones, kind of little mini series for an actual like television station as well. And so this, I'm freelancing. So there's a lot of different productions going on that people just need help with, even if they don't have a full crew. They're just like, hey, I need someone for the day, maybe a couple of days, or like a long term. So that is usually what we do, what we're here for. And it's very nice. You can learn a lot. You can work with different groups of people for different projects, and it's very fun. It's always entertaining, literally always on your feet. But that's also good.
And long days, because the production assistants are pretty much there from the start till the end of the day as well.
Yes, that is true. So depending on how long the production is, you're going to be there for the whole thing.
So with that, when somebody's reaching out to you or when you're looking for PA work, is it narrowed down a little bit more? Like, so, hey, we need somebody today to keep an eye on the extras and make sure that they're getting fed, or is it more just like, okay, we need PAs, and then when you get there for the day, they're like, okay, you do this, and you do that?
Yes, it's mainly we need you for the day, and then we'll kind of see how it goes from there. Usually they'll say at least like how long it would be, but that's usually like the whole day. So let's say like 10 hours or something, but you're not like fully doing everything for that 10 hours. So you do have breaks, mainly when the actual shooting is going on, and hopefully they don't need you, but you're still very close to the director just to make sure that they have everything that they need. If they want to add something real quick, that you can swiftly do it, and make sure everything follows through. So
have you ever had anything where you're like, man, I don't want to do that, really? Come on.
I am more I like to more actually work on the actual production. So even if it's just like, make sure this camera doesn't tilt. Okay, I got you. I'm not the type that usually likes to go and get food. So
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is it like, really? You have to go get your coffee for you? Come on.
I was like, well, we're in the 21st century that you can like Uber it and someone can literally bring it to you at the door. So there's no actual need to go out and get things anymore. But just just the fact that like if I'm going out to get something, I'm missing part of the production.
Yeah.
So if there's like nothing going on, like sure, I'll go for a little walk. That's fine. But if they're in a big scene, I'm like, can we wait for a second? But not really allowed.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially like moving into like directing your own stuff or making your own films and everything, to see how that set is working and to be part of that experience. It has got to be super beneficial in regards to the learning aspect of it.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the start where kind of everyone goes to if they want to go up in the world. So within the career field, this is where it begins. So this is like you learn all the materials, every single item that you'll use, and this is where like everything kind of just like seeps in like sponge. You're just absorbing all this information, so it's very vital. It's very important that you're there, even if you don't like know what you're doing. Just always be alert. Just always like let them know that like I'm here to help you, so tell me whatever it is, whatever you want me to do, I will do it. So that's basically what they're looking for, and that's what they want, and that's good. And then that's when they're like, oh, you're so good, all right, next project, maybe you can help me with that. And then that's how it like keeps on going and going. So this is all networking basically with any career field kind of, but definitely within this one, you just need to always be there, say hello to everyone, make sure they know your name, know you're here, know what you're doing.
That makes sense too, because especially in the industry, word gets around. It's like, oh, this person's a pain in the ass to work with,
Yes.
or they were late or whatever. And yeah, you're not going to get hired for the next gig. So it's important to have that attitude. And yeah, they'll remember it, be like, oh yeah, she was great. Let's bring her onto this project. And, since you did such a good job last time, let's give her this extra item to do. And so you kind of work your way up from there. So it makes sense.
Yes, it is. So that's usually how it is. And then if you ever want to actually do more, because there's a lot of different actual positions that you can do within the field here. And it also depends on the type of person that you are and what you want to do, but moving up, that is the way to do it. So this is where you can easily see everything and how actually a production is done from start to finish. So you can be a big name, whatever, but if you don't know how it actually works, then nothing's really going to be going.
Yeah. How did you find that first production assistant job? Like what was your first thing and how did you get it? Like for, let's say somebody else wants to try to get into doing PA work.
I think the first one, I think I was using a site called Mandy, I believe. Yep. And that I had all my information on there. That one. And there's a Medium Match, I believe. Medium Match, yes. So there's a lot of different websites for freelancers, not just for like production assistants, but any freelancers. But that one is mainly within the field of like TV and film. So within that production work, those are the sites that I suggest going to. So they've been very helpful. I found different jobs within the area, and all your information is there. You can put your website, any reels, anything that you want to showcase to. You can also put that on those links there. So you'll be connected. You'll apply for the job. They reach out to you. They need to see that experience. So resume, make sure that's clean. And the go-to attitude will do as well. So you'll get some like calls for interviews. So they'll ask you like just to make sure that you know what they're working with, the type of equipment. So even if you don't have the equipment, or even if you actually haven't used it, if you've used some type of equipment within the field, if you're knowledgeable somewhat, because this is still like the time where you can still learn, even if you don't have that experience or knowledge. So you'll still be able to learn yourself. But those are the two sites that I've mainly used. And they've been pretty helpful for me.
Yeah. Good sites. Is there much work in that area? Because I don't necessarily think of like DC, Maryland, that area as a big production hub.
Not really. If anything, it would mainly be inside of DC. But no, the only other ones are probably like up in Philly and like New York City, and the other ones like downtown in in like Atlanta, which is way
Yeah.
farther. So yeah, not really in the Washington DC area. Usually, you'll probably get maybe something corporate level, just for their company and they need some extra hands. That's probably it, not too much. Or even Baltimore, they have a couple going up there. I think Baltimore would be a little bit more actually than DC, maybe.
Yeah. The only thing I know from Baltimore is any John Waters film. And he hasn't made a film in years. So that's what he's up to.
I think they have more for like different. There was like not really, maybe it's for a TV show, for different TV shows, or a little bit like segments, small segments I think they have going on. I think that's pretty much. But no, it's not, definitely not like California out here. So you're not going to get something every single day at every spot around the corner. So no, this one you kind of have to look for and just like grab the quickest one.
Okay. But at least you're still able to find work, which is good. And it says that a person doesn't necessarily have to live in Atlanta or LA or something like that. And you've got a nice balance of doing the stagehand work as well as the production assistant work, because I would imagine most of the stagehand work is it, well, I guess with setting up and stuff, it probably would be during the day. I was thinking it might probably be in the evenings, but it probably isn't. So do you have to schedule then and be like, okay, I'm doing this, I can't do that?
So at least for me, the scheduling will get the scheduling for the shows, a month in advance, and it's kind of like say your availabilities. So for the setup, it's usually like maybe at 8 or 9, probably the earliest in the morning, but you're usually out at like 2, and then you'll come back a couple minutes, like 30 minutes before the show ends. It depends. And then there's some people in between as well. But mainly you'll be there before for the in and the out. That's what we call it. And so for the production assistant work, you can try to do both in a day. It really depends on the actual production. Probably you won't. Usually I need, for the recent productions I've seen, they're usually like 2 to 3 days. So you'll probably won't be working for 2 to 3 days. But also for the stagehand, that is kind of flexible. So if you can, you probably can like get off for the day or switch days with someone, something like that. But you usually are able to make it work. I know the last production that I saw, I applied to it in like November. It was supposed to be in January. It's supposed to be in February, and then postponed it because of COVID. So now it's like down in March, but I've known about it since like November. So sometimes you'll have productions like that, which is good, where the dates way beforehand. So you can actually make time for that, make room for that as well.
Okay, that's nice. Well, I think that was very, very informative for the audience. Like, if anybody who kind of wants to go into those areas, if people want to track you down or find you, is there any social media links you want to give or anything like that?
My Instagram is it's the name that I'm laughing at. When you make stuff in like I think it was middle school actually, but it was Shining for You, SHININ_4_ the letter U. That's why.
Okay.
I'm on Vimeo, and also I have a Weebly page, and then Facebook. I had my past radio show, my personal radio show that I did in college. So that one is still up. So that should be Back to the Roots. So that one you'll definitely be able to find over on Facebook. I think my Weebly is just my name.
All right, Syllia. Well, thank you. That was fascinating, and I appreciate you spending the time to talk to me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.